When darkness becomes your teacher, finding yourself in life's hardest moments. Welcome to the soft girl era, where we explore the journey from constantly grinding to finally grounding. I'm honored to share insights from my recent conversation with Charlene Monae, whose wisdom on embracing life's darkest moments has transformed countless lives, especially among high achieving Black women seeking to reclaim their softness and authenticity. Charlene isn't just a thought leader, she's a spiritual lighthouse for those navigating stormy waters. Her work has created safe harbors for thousands of women who found themselves drowning in expectations, perfectionism, and the exhaustion of perpetual strength. Through her writing, speaking, and mentorship, she's revolutionized how we understand personal transformation, particularly for Black women carrying the weight of generational resilience. Have you ever noticed how we're taught to run from pain, to push through it, medicate it, ignore it, or pretend it isn't there? We live in a culture obsessed with happiness, with good vibes only, with the quick fix and the silver lining. And there's something almost violent about this collective denial of darkness, isn't there? But what if, and this is where it gets interesting, what if the very darkness we're running from contains the exact medicine we need? 3 years ago, a Black woman executive stood in her empty bedroom, divorce papers signed, career intact, but heart shattered. Society told her she had failed. Her community whispered behind her back. Her family questioned her decisions. But in that moment of complete emptiness, something unexpected happened. She later told me it was like finally being able to hear my own voice after years of static. That woman's journey, shared with Charlene Monet, reveals something profound about what happens when we stop running from our darkest nights and instead learn to sit with them. The dark night of the soul sounds poetic, almost romantic, but there's nothing romantic about it when you're in it. It's the spiritual equivalent of being stripped naked in public, exposed, vulnerable, with nowhere to hide. It's divorce papers, business failure, losing both parents within months. It's the moment when everything you thought defined you is suddenly gone. And yet, this is precisely where transformation begins. As Charlene Monet so eloquently shared, the dark night strips away our illusions and forces us to confront our truest selves. This isn't just spiritual theory, it's practical reality for those brave enough to embrace it. Consider the Black entrepreneur whose business collapsed during an economic downturn. Everything she'd built gone. Her identity as a successful business owner shattered. Her financial security vanished. Friends and family questioned her decisions. Why risk it all? Depression followed, isolation grew. The separation from her spiritual roots deepened with each passing day. But here's where her story takes an unexpected turn. Instead of immediately launching into another venture, she paused. She joined virtual faith based support circles. She explored meditation practices rooted in ancestral wisdom traditions. She read books that normalized pain as part of growth. I had to learn that failure wasn't punishment, she shared with Charlene. It was redirection. This redirection led her not back to business as usual, but to something deeper, a nonprofit supporting other minority founders through mentorship and grants, informed by lessons learned during her lowest point. Her impact rippled across her local ecosystem, inspiring conversations about mental health among entrepreneurs previously afraid to admit vulnerability. This is what happens when we stop running from darkness and instead allow it to teach us. But let's be honest, this isn't easy, especially for Black women who've been conditioned to be strong to keep going, to never show weakness. The superwoman cape is heavy, isn't it? So heavy that sometimes we forget we're even wearing it. We just know our shoulders hurt, our spirit is tired, and something has to give. Charlene Monae's insights remind us that learning to live with our life decisions, even the painful ones, is an act of self love and courage. Accepting responsibility for choices like ending a marriage or closing a business requires tremendous bravery. I'm reminded of the executive who, after her divorce, spent years prioritizing family harmony over personal well being. She ignored warning signs, pushed down her own needs, and maintained a perfect exterior while crumbling inside. Her decision to leave was both devastating and liberating. Through therapy focused on self compassion, support groups tailored for Black women professionals, journaling about her values, and daily spiritual reflection, she gradually rebuilt her confidence. She set boundaries at work and home. She discovered new passions, particularly mentoring young women. Most importantly, she felt empowered, making decisions aligned with her own needs rather than external expectations. The transformation wasn't just personal. She launched an internal diversity initiative at work inspired by her healing journey and became known as an advocate for mental health destigmatization among Black professionals. Her openness encouraged others facing similar crossroads, especially those who felt isolated due to cultural taboos, to seek help without shame. This is what happens when we embrace our darkness as a teacher rather than an enemy. But what about when the darkness comes from loss rather than choice? Consider the Black professional who lost both parents unexpectedly within months, a seismic rupture that shook their faith and trust in life's fairness. The overwhelming grief led to withdrawal from social and professional circles. They struggled with anger at God and the universe and questioned whether they could ever feel whole again without their parental guidance and support system. At the memorial services, they made soul searching promises. I will honor you by living fully. But how do you live fully when grief has hollowed you out? Through culturally responsive grief counseling, online networks connecting others mourning similar losses, and honoring their parents' legacy through annual acts of service. They found a renewed sense of belonging and purpose. They reconnected spiritually after months adrift and reported feeling more integrated, with sorrow coexisting alongside hope and love. Having always defined themselves first and foremost as someone's child, this loss forced a radical redefinition while still holding on to cherished memories and traditions. Their journey inspired workplace bereavement policy reform so colleagues wouldn't suffer alone or silently. It sparked broader conversations around culturally sensitive approaches toward grief and healing inside corporate America and community organizations. They modeled healthy grieving processes for younger relatives and friends navigating their first major losses. As Charlene Monet wisely observed, finding yourself amid adversity requires compassion toward yourself and faith in your journey. These challenging seasons aren't signs of failure, but invitations to reconnect with your soul's purpose and rediscover meaning beyond external circumstances. I want to pause here and acknowledge something important. In the soft girl era, we're learning that softness isn't weakness, it's a radical act of self love. And sometimes the softest thing we can do is to sit with our pain rather than running from it. This isn't about wallowing, it's about witnessing, witnessing ourselves with compassion, witnessing our journey without judgment, witnessing our darkness as a necessary teacher. When we do this, something magical happens. The darkness begins to transform, not because we conquered it or overcame it or pushed through it, but because we allowed it to do its work in us. The executive found herself after divorce. The entrepreneur found her true purpose after business failure. The grieving child found a new identity after losing both parents. Each darkness served as a doorway to something deeper, more authentic, more aligned with their soul's purpose. So, what does this mean for you? For us, it means that whatever darkness you're facing right now, whether it's divorce, business failure, grief, or something else entirely, it's not just something to endure, it's something to embrace as a teacher. It means that learning to live with your life decisions, even the painful ones, is an act of courage and self love. It means that finding yourself amid adversity requires compassion toward yourself and faith in your journey. I want you to leave here today with more than just inspiration. I want you to leave with a commitment to transformation. When you walk out these doors, I challenge you to do something radical. Stop running, stop distracting, stop numbing. Instead, turn toward your darkness with curiosity rather than fear. Ask yourself, what is this darkness trying to teach me? What illusions is it stripping away? What truths is it revealing? Write a letter to your darkness. Thank it for its lessons, even as you acknowledge its pain. Share your experience with someone you trust. Break the silence that keeps so many of us isolated in our suffering. And remember Charlene Monae's powerful affirmation: I embrace my darkness as my teacher. I accept my journey with compassion. I trust that this season is preparing me for deeper authenticity and purpose. In the ancient wisdom tradition, there's a saying: though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Not because the valley isn't dark or scary, but because we understand that valleys too are part of the journey. The darkness you're experiencing right now might just be the greatest teacher you've ever had. The question is, are you willing to learn its lessons? When we embrace our dark night of the soul as a catalyst for transformation, when we learn to live with our life decisions as an act of self love, and when we find ourselves amid adversity through compassion and faith, we don't just survive our darkest moments, we are transformed by them. And in that transformation, we discover not just who we were, but who we were always meant to become. That is the ultimate gift of darkness. It doesn't just break us open, it breaks us open to let the light in. Thank you